Today, I want to talk to you about this mental monster that we all battle. It's called overthinking. It's that relentless loop in your head where you go through the endless what ifs or the constant analysis and over-analysis of every possible situation that is going on in your world right now. And we do this overthinking, and it makes our mind completely cluttered. And that is the opposite of what we want. Let's dive into what that means. Overthinking. What does it do for us, right? It is something that we think is productive, but it really isn't. What it leads to is a complete analysis paralysis because instead of making decisions, we keep getting stuck. We chew on the same problem from every angle and still we can't take action because we get caught up in that loop of overthinking, right? Overthinking also means missed opportunities. Because when you're busy dissecting every possible angle of a situation, you are not thinking about solutions. You are not thinking about what is right in front of you, and you're missing out on all those opportunities. The other thing that overthinking does is of course, it increases your anxiety and your stress. Your mind becomes this like battlefield where you just can't stop thinking, and it leads to absolute and utter, right? You are emotionally drained as a result of overthinking. And of course, it also impacts our confidence, right? When we are not feeling like we have clarity on the situation that we're in, and we are ruminating and second guessing ourselves, it takes a hit on our confidence. And when we're not confident, we cannot show up in the world with pride and joy, right? And so we don't attract whatever it is that we want. So ultimately, overthinking is literally just a sneaky form of mental procrastination, right? Now, where does this even come from, right? Let's dig a little deeper. Let's try and understand it. Maybe, just maybe, we are trying to engage in a desire for control, right? Because we live in an uncertain world. And when we get into this overthinking as a coping mechanism, sometimes we want to predict every outcome. We want to control every variable so that we can avoid any potential pain or failure, right? This could be a desire to control. It could be because of our certain past experiences. If we've been hurt or disappointed in the past, our brain might try to protect us by constantly replaying all the scenarios and obsessively planning to avoid a repeat of the past experience, right? And of course, the fear of failure or judgment is a big one. That's another thing that might have us get into this loop of overthinking nonstop, over and over, just analyzing and leading to this jam up in our brain. Perfectionism, that's another one, right? The pursuit of a perfect solution can lead us to overanalyze situations one after the other. It might not get us to a perfect solution, right? And maybe there are situations where perfection is not possible, right? And of course, the information overload that comes from overthinking. It is just not healthy, right? Our brains are trying to process all of it, and this just raises our cortisol levels and doesn't give us anything beneficial in the process. So how do we deal with overthinking, right? How do we break free? The good news is that we can break free, right? We can. So how do we do it? First, we have to be aware of the fact that we're doing it, right? As always, I go back to the 3 A's. Do you have awareness of the fact that you are an overthinker? Do you tend to get into analysis paralysis? Do you tend to get stuck in this nonstop loop of thinking? And if you do, let's call it out. The minute you have awareness, maybe you have awareness 2 days after you had an overthinking episode. Maybe you have awareness during the overthinking. Maybe you have awareness before you get into that, right? Wherever you are in your awareness journey, call it out the minute you become aware. The minute you catch yourself doing it, literally say to yourself or even out loud, there it is, I'm overthinking again. And by labeling it and by calling it out, you create a little bit of distance between you. It's like observing a cloud instead of being lost in it. Right? When you're in the cloud, it's all foggy and you can't really see anything. But when you're observing the cloud, it is different. You have clarity, right? And then if you feel like you are going to go into this overthinking loop and you can't help yourself, set a timer, 5 minutes. I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to analyze every possible angle of the situation. And then I'm going to see what happens, right? And then see if it's even taking me anywhere. And if it's not, then we put an end to it, right? When the timer goes off, I'm done thinking about this. Let me do something else that's productive. The third thing you can do is engage your senses and come back to being present, right? Look around and identify 5 beautiful things that you see in and around you. Touch 4 different textures and see what that feels like, right? Listen for 3 different sounds. Like I'm listening to it right now, and I'm listening to a plane go by. I hear a bird chirping. I heard a car go by. 3 things, 3 sounds, right? And then identify 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. And this simple grounding exercise will pull your focus out of the overthinking, the cluttered mind, and then bring you back to center, right? And then the last thing you can do is to ask for an outside perspective. Sometimes we overthink in our head so much about a certain thing, and all it takes is seeing that same situation from someone else's perspective. And it immediately stops us in our tracks and goes, oh, I never thought of it like that. That's right. I could see it like this. And then suddenly, when you change that lens through which you see the situation, the whole situation can look different. And instead of seeing problems, you might start to find solutions. So remember, overthinking is just a habit. And like any habit, it can be unlearned. It begins with awareness of when it's happening, followed by acceptance that, okay, this is where I am. I just have to be aware and I have to accept that this is what I tend to do. And then taking conscious action to shift your focus and propel you forward. Okay, start implementing some of these today if you're an overthinker, and tell me how that works out for you. I used to be a chronic overthinker. I would overanalyze everything to death until I realized that a lot of that overthinking was not serving me. And so when I started to put these things into action, it freed up my energy. It helped me kind of let go of a lot of the processes in my head that were not serving me. And in turn, it gave me clarity and purpose, solutions to the problems that I was facing. And so if you find yourself out of that overthinking loop, first stop, second step, be aware and accept that, okay, I have a tendency to do this, or go, oh, I'm doing it again. And then the third step is to take some action that will take you out of this loop of overthinking. So I hope this inspires you to take some action and change some perspectives and bring your attention to your thoughts rather than get lost in them.